Infinity Train is an animated show about kids that deserves to be watched by an adult audience. Despite how the Cartoon Network HBO Max show features a revolving door of adolescent characters, Infinity Train feels tailor-made for more mature sensibilities of the non-edgelord kind. In terms of its themes, presentation, and narrative components, Infinity Train has a heart that can easily resonate with older souls, even though the program's hand-drawn animated style could cause this great and wonderful show to be mistaken for a mere children's cartoon at first glance. The story focuses on mature topics such as morality, admitting one's faults, and personal identity, and as a result, Infinity Train causes the viewer to be introspective on their own personal failings and imperfections, all things that add up as our lives extend longer and longer. If anything, despite its nature as an animated show, Infinity Train will have more meaning for older viewers than younger ones, because it really has that much depth and maturity. Despite the fantastical nature of the show, you can relate to the situations the characters find themselves in. Sure, Infinity Train features outlandish elements like a monarchy ruled by a talking corgi and an energetic yet depressed robot, but even with its absurdities, the show feels really personal. Infinity Train is very human like that. This is in stark contrast to a lot of the more popular adult animated programming that's on today. Most cartoons marketed for adults are pretty childish, to be perfectly honest. Shows like Rick and Morty, South Park, and Family Guy feature expletive edgelord humor, buckets of gore, and pickle ricks, but they also rarely contain emotional depth and maturity. Sure, they can be hilarious, supposedly, but these programs often lack narrative and thematic substance beyond inducing cackles of maniacal laughter out of its audience, supposedly. These shows often serve little purpose other than to entertain you with a teenage young adult sense of what the phrase maturity means, by which I mean curse words, violence, and awkward sex. Kind of like Game of Thrones, but dumber, which is really saying something when you take the later seasons into account. Admittedly, this does not mean that every violent and profanity-laden show is bad just because it contains crass language or lots of gore. In fact, I do enjoy Rick and Morty and getting swifty and shit. And when it comes to South Park, I'm not opposed to its excessive amounts of blood, or the fact that children throw around F-bombs like Oprah Winfrey gives away free cars. That show sucks for other reasons. But here's the thing. A lot of animated shows use vulgarity and bloody violence to obscure the fact that they lack narrative and thematic depth. Contrary to the most popular shows promoted as mature content, popular animated programming that appeals to a mature audience does not have to just be in the same zany, over-the-top, violent, and vulgar vein as Rick and Morty or South Park. These shows can have a bigger meaning than to merely make you laugh. Supposedly. Infinity Train is one of these shows. As an HBO Max series by Owen Dennis, Infinity Train tackles heavy themes of grief, identity, and personal growth in a way that is simultaneously rewarding to adult sensibilities while also being accessible to younger audiences. The show is charming, heartfelt, and humorous without the need for excessive surface-level, mature content that is present in other popular animated adult programming. Instead, Infinity Train establishes a firm emotional connection in the viewer's psyche, regardless of background or age, all despite the fact that the show contains a story and themes that challenge the viewer across 3 seasons with 10-11-minute episodes apiece. Through all of it, Infinity Train really hits home, and as a result, it is really damn good, containing a lot of heart, meaningful thematic messaging, and a fun sense of mystery. And the show struck gold on its first attempt. Infinity Train Season 1 captures this mood and feeling right from the start. In fact, Infinity Train Season 1's story has a great hook and catch. The plot follows a young girl named Tulip who is voiced by Ashley Johnson. Yes, that Ashley Johnson, as she goes through a tough time at home. See, Tulip's parents are divorced, which has thrown a wrench in her personal life. Prudent to the show's plot, neither of her parents were able to drive her to a computer game coding camp, and in response to this, she runs away, trying to travel to that said coding camp herself. During her flight, Tulip stops outside a train station when an otherworldly locomotive stops and transports her onto the Infinity Train, which is a never-ending locomotive where each boxcar contains its own world with its own rules, people, and creatures, and each passenger, like Tulip, has an always changing number tattooed on their arm. On the Infinity Train, Tulip must find a way to survive and get home to her family before her number hits 0, which she fears might not be optimal. No one likes being a 0, and I should know. As far as characters go, Tulip is incredibly relatable. She is adventurous and has a ton of spunk, but she also has many failings. Despite her pain about her parents' divorce being justified, been there, Tulip can be very self-centered, thinking of her own problems over the needs of others. These character imperfections humanize Tulip. Her character deficiencies mirror those of the audience, especially families who have been through a tumultuous divorce. And due to this, you cannot help but to empathize with Tulip as she tries to grow as a person. And the word growth is the correct word here, because Tulip grows like a flower. You know, like a tulip. It's not very subtle, but I'm okay with that. The creative world building complements Tulip's character development. As stated before, each boxcar on the Infinity Train contains its own world with its own internal logic and rules. These worlds range from a kingdom ruled by intelligent corgis, the humble abode of a sly talking cat, and a mirror world where reflections are actual living people. Whatever the case though, Infinity Train consistently introduces new and exciting ideas and obstacles that Tulip must overcome. Each episode slowly but surely plots out new revelations that raise the stakes on the narrative while also furthering the story's sense of mystery and enhancing the aforementioned mature themes of grief and identity. This maturity extends to the show's comedy as well. Of course though, Infinity Train Season 1 is also really funny. Even though Infinity Train has emotionally deep subject matter, the program has moments of pure hilarity and dark comedy, supporting characters like Atticus the Talking Cordy and 1-1, a robot with a dual personality of energetic positivity and depressed deadpan negativity, are a riot. At first glance, Atticus and 1-1 appear to bring brevity to Tulip's adventure, but the humor really complements Tulip's emotional journey where she grapples with grief and her parents' divorce. Whether it is Tulip, 1-1, or Atticus, the humor is very situational and enhances our understanding of the characters while also making you laugh to an almost embarrassing degree. Almost. Playing into the show's emotionally substantial themes, the jokes and the humor are often very morbid, they're very adult, yet Infinity Train never relies on graphic violence or expletives as a crutch to make it sound more mature than it really is. In Infinity Train, the content speaks for itself. This perfectly explains Infinity Train Season 1 as a whole. Despite how it can be watched by viewers of all ages, Infinity Train is an adult show that does not need to rely on over-the-top violence or vulgarity to prove its maturity. The adult nature of the narrative, themes, and character development make any form of gratuitous antics seen in shows like South Park seem unnecessary. Infinity Train Season 1 features an understandable and flawed main protagonist, thematic storytelling about personal growth, creative world building, and a rich sense of humor that all appeal to adult sensibilities while also still being accessible to younger viewers. Add on some gorgeous animation and a killer 80s style synth soundtrack, Infinity Train Season 1 is worth getting on board for, no matter what your age is, which is good because I just turned 30. God, I'm getting old. Infinity Train is a great example of how this medium has matured in the last decade or so. Sure, shows like Infinity Train, the She-Ra reboot, and Hilda are technically shows for kids, but they also found a way to appeal to adults. They all have their own creative merits that resonate with adults, despite being accessible to all ages, and that alone is a true art form. Thanks so much for watching. And with that, I want to thank my patrons, especially Slasher Avails, Mom, and David Devlin. Thank you so much for supporting what I do. I love y'all.